Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens.
One-off cash payments, a welcome addition. Home guarantee scheme, / petrol price.
Halving the excise.
Dozens of sweeteners that sound rather nice.
It's like a shield for families at the moment, a shield against those pressures of rising costs of living.
Or is it?
Well, this has all the sincerity of a fake tan. This is a plan for an election, not a plan for Australia's future.
The response? A mixed bag.
I think they've done an excellent job.
I think ScoMo was very generous to the people.
I thought the fuel was good, but I think it's kind of just cashing in, trying to get voters.
It's a political scam.
But the big spending budget did tick a lot of billion-dollar boxes.
$2.3 billion investment in mental health. A new $1.3 billion package to end violence against women and children. More than $180 billion in education funding. $9.9 billion investment in Australia's offensive and defensive cyber capabilities.
That last cybersecurity pledge dubbed Red Spice.
Girl power.
Doing a great job, Josh.
As far as omissions go, the biggest gripes were around aged care workers.
There was zero money for wages for some of the lowest paid workers in this country. There's zero plan to address the workforce shortages, and they are angry.
And climate action.
This federal government plans to decrease funding for climate action over the next 5 years.
There's over $38 billion in handouts to coal, oil and gas corporations, but no new money for renewable energy.
So will the government's big budget packages
Tied up with strings.
be enough to win a slew of their favourite things?
Votes, voters chasing votes.
Oh, come on.
We did invite Josh Frydenberg to join us tonight. He declined. So instead, we're joined by the man who wants his job, Jim Chalmers. Shadow Treasurer, we've got a snippet here from last night's budget speech. Let's just take a look at that.
3 years ago, we said to the Australian people that under the coalition, more people would be in work, and we delivered. Yeah. That under the coalition, taxes would be lower, and we delivered. Yeah. And that under the coalition, we would invest more in national security, and we delivered. Yeah.
That's pretty hard to argue with, isn't it?
Oh, 3 years ago, he was flogging off those back in black mugs on the Liberal Party website for $39.95, and so I don't think he's quite delivered everything that he promised. Look, the budget's got $1 trillion in debt, not enough to show for it. Real wages are going backwards, but I think the biggest problem with the budget last night is that there's just no plan for the future. It's a budget with a 6 or 7 week shelf life. The government can't see past the next election, and that's why we've got this act of political desperation.
But if it's so short-sighted and so bad, you are supporting a lot of the measures in the budget.
Look, we've said because people are copping it, frankly, because their real wages are going backwards once again, to the tune on average of about $26 a week, we think that there is a place for some cost of living relief. We've been saying that for some time. The missing part of the budget was actually a plan for the future. I think some people would have tuned in and thought, yep, there'd be some cost of living relief in the near term, but what happens after that? What happens after the election? What happens in terms of education or childcare or cleaner and cheaper energy? And that was really what was missing from last night.
Unemployment's at a record low, that's real.
Oh, unemployment's around 4%. We've said we want that as low as possible. Unfortunately, we're not yet getting that wages growth that you'd normally see from unemployment lowering in welcome ways. And we've got skill shortages. So it's a bit strange that we haven't had the wages growth that people need. I think your viewers would understand not just petrol, as important as that is, but also rent and groceries and childcare. There are a lot of ways that the cost of living are going through the roof. And so we need to look for ways to give relief there. But part of that is having a decent plan for power bills, for childcare, for all of these other sorts of things. That way we can have unemployment as low as possible, inflation as low as possible, and we can grow the economy the right way.
Jim, you mentioned petrol. The fuel excise will be halved, 22 cents cut, but it'll go back up in 6 months. So say you win the election in May, whenever it's held, you're going to have to announce that petrol price increases. That'll be a pretty uncomfortable announcement, won't it?
I would have thought so, Steve, to be honest, but the truth is that the legislation that goes through the parliament today legislates an increase in the price of petrol at the end of September. I think whoever wins the election, that the most likely outcome is petrol goes back up again. And if I'm blunt about it, I think that's part of the government's intention. They're taking a problem that exists before the election, they're pushing it to the other side of the election and hoping that they can scrape through. But as it stands right now, petrol will go down for 6 months and then it will come up again at the end of that 6-month period.
But the Prime Minister showed today that he doesn't quite get this whole thing about housing affordability and young Australians getting their own property, where he said, look, the answer to increased rents is you go and buy a house. For many Australians, that's clearly not possible.
Yeah, obviously. And you probably remember, Steve, it wasn't that long ago that other Prime Ministers in this government were talking about, if you can't afford a house, then you've got to go and get your mum and dad to sort one. Or Joe Hockey said, if you can't afford a house, you've got to go and get a higher paying job. I don't think they really understand the pressures here. I think it's a really pressing concern that people legitimately hold.
Jim, last night's budget speech was outrated by Channel 10's The Doghouse. Labor's budget reply speech is up against First Dates on Thursday. Does Albo have any tricks up his sleeve to win more viewers than Friday?
Well, they could tape the other show and watch Albo live, I would have thought, and catch up afterwards. That'd be my advice.
That is not Channel 10's advice.
Jim, thanks very much for your time.
Appreciate it, guys. All the best.